I was born on July 21st, 1955 in Stamford, Connecticut. I was the seventh son, eighth child of Bill and Agnes Malloy. My mother was a school nurse, and before that had been a public health nurse, and my dad sold insurance in a local agency in downtown Stamford. When I was growing up, I just thought of it as a typical American family, maybe a little larger. My dad and my mom were both very hardworking people. I mean, they had 8 kids, and they had to make sure that those kids were fed and that they were being educated and that they would all have opportunities that they hadn't had. And there were times then that it was really tough. I remember many times that my mother would take on special duty work at a hospital or for a private patient just to kind of make ends meet in the family. In so many ways, growing up in Stamford as one of 8 kids to a mom and a dad who worked, it was, you know, I thought typical, but now in retrospect, it really was quite extraordinary what they accomplished. I grew up in a personal way, very different than most other kids when I was growing up. I mean, I had been born with some pretty severe disabilities, dyslexia and other disorders that really made it very difficult for me to learn like other people did. I mean, I remembered everything I read, but reading was arduous. So my mother had decided that she didn't buy into the idea that her son was slow or mentally retarded, as that term was used in those days. She made a definitive decision that she was going to stress the things that I was good at and not bother with the things that I wasn't good at. And so when it came time to go away to college, you know, I was just lucky that some schools were willing to take a chance on me. When I went away to Boston College, you know, I was still listening to my textbooks and other books on recorded books for the blind. Eventually those skills started to get better and stronger, and so I became competitive. And you know, when I graduated from Boston College, I graduated magna cum laude, and when it came time to go to law school, I stayed there to go to law school. And you know, I guess the rest of it's a little bit of history. I started in the Brooklyn DA's office in the late summer of 1980. I would work, you know, elbow to elbow with police officers. I presented over 250 cases to the grand jury, and we actually, I think, played a role in making Brooklyn a little safer. My track record on felonies was I tried 23 cases, and I had convictions in 22 of those cases, including all 4 homicides. I guess I had a pretty good track record. After being an assistant district attorney, I went back to Stamford, and I was always going to go back to Stamford. And you know, I started practicing law, and I was elected to the Stamford Board of Finance, and also served for a year on the Board of Education before I became mayor of Stamford a little over 14 years ago. Before I ran for mayor of Stamford, Stamford was in decline. It had become substantially unsafe. Businesses were fleeing. The population was leaving. It was experiencing the same kind of decline that every other major city in New England was experiencing or had been experiencing for a long period of time. And I just decided in my own mind that I wanted to make Stamford a stronger, safer place. I wanted there to be at least one Connecticut city that would shine, and I wanted it to be the place that I had been born and raised in. Well, we lowered crime by 64%. We made Stamford one of the 10 safest cities in America on a routine basis. That allowed us to begin attracting jobs and new employers to downtown Stamford. We also spearheaded requiring that 10% of all new multifamily housing be set aside as affordable. I was mayor for 14 years, and in a region of the country where most communities shrank, Stamford increased its population very significantly. It was almost as if people were voting for the changes we were making by moving to our community. And I just, you know, I firmly believe it's a better, stronger place today because of the things that we were able to accomplish together. I'm running for governor of Connecticut because Connecticut needs to change. And I believe that as a former prosecutor and a former mayor and somebody who's been involved in community and in commerce, that I have the skill set necessary to get the job done. I'd like to restore people's hope that Connecticut state government can deal with its problems, that it can put its economic house in order, that we can balance our budgets, that we could have a focus on job creation and job retention, that we can take on the issue of school reform and lead the nation in that regard. I want the people of Connecticut to be proud that they're from Connecticut. I want them to be proud because they have the most efficient state government in the nation. We are going to get back in the business of job creation. We are going to elevate our educational institutions. We're going to change how we raise money to pay for education in Connecticut. We're going to begin the process of growing jobs. We're going to attack the issue of high energy costs. If you believe, as I do, that Connecticut's best days could be ahead of it and not behind it, then you really should be supporting me, because together, we're going to get the job done. I'm Dan Malloy, and I approve this message.